Welcome back. As promised, a very serious discussion up next, and we welcome Sabina. Sabina Gomez, she is the Chief Labor Relations Officer there at the Ministry of Labor, and it's the Conciliation, Advisory and Advocacy Division, spearheading this very important, I would say, breakthrough. It's a helpline. It's very important to address matters concerning sexual harassment in the workplace. And obviously, the ball is rolling. There is now a helpline. It's the Tri-lingual sexual harassment in the workplace helpline, and there's a number, and I'll let Ms. Gomez give us that number and give us some more details. Welcome, and thanks for being here.
Okay, good morning, Trinidad and Tobago, and thank you for having me.
I'm sure this would have been in the pipeline for quite a while. This would have been parts of major discussions, I could imagine, for years prior.
Well, the National Workplace Policy came into being on International Women's Day in 2019. So since then, we have been, rolling out, doing the outreach and all of that. But in order to have a wider reach and for persons to come in, because we hear about what is taking place on the outside, on the ground, in the workplace, but to get the persons to come into us or to seek us out, we find that we're not getting that traction. So what we decided to do was have a helpline if they feel that they can call in and seek advice if that may be another avenue for them to get redress, because we have an email address. If you don't want to come in, then you could send us an email and we'll respond to you. Once you have a contact number, we'll call you, we'll reach out to you. So it's a matter of just expanding the service that we offer, because we really want persons to, who are experiencing that in the workplace, because it can be quite traumatic for some persons.
Is the facility, this helpline, is it being utilized?
Not as much as we'd want to, because we just started, the launch just came about like in March. So not as much as we would want to, and that's why it's so important for us to do this outreach and let
awareness.
To let the working population of Trinidad and Tobago know that if you are working in an environment and you're experiencing, you're being sexually harassed in the workplace, and it could be, we are just having a conversation. It could be, most people feel that sexual harassment is a man sexually harassing a woman in the workplace, but we have all variations, men sexually harassing men, women sexually harassing women in the workplace, and even women sexually harassing men on the workplace. But it may not be, the men may not want to come in. We have very few men, but we do have men coming in.
And see, I'm wondering too, our culture in the Caribbean, very touchy-feely, very different compared to the outside world. So I wonder if certain behaviors in the workplace is so normalized that some people might not even recognize that it is harassment. So I'm wondering if, there should be even a greater conversation to let people know what are the boundaries and what are the lines one will not cross, because the work culture in Trinidad.
Yes, we have the touchy-feely, some people like to touch. I mean, that's just how they communicate. They come onto you and they touch you, and then the thing is, one person might feel, well, it's okay, they don't, they don't mind, they don't feel anyhow, and then you do it to somebody else and they get offended or they get upset about it. And so how the definition of sexual harassment, because you're looking at, it could be physical, it could be non-verbal, but once it's of a sexual nature and it affects, the dignity of men and women in the workplace, if you feel uncomfortable with it, it could take the form of anything. Somebody could send you a WhatsApp message, it could be emails, it could be, your conduct, the conduct of sexual harassment, images.
What about workers who, let's say, might go do a little Friday lime, favorite water, and hold a couple drinks in people's system, and people's mouths that get a bit loose? Is that also, even though you're out of the workplace, you're still in work clothes, but is that also considered
Well, actually, there's a industrial court judgment about that, a Friday night lime that was taken to a bar in a Rima, and then things happen, and it end up, back in the workplace, and then at industrial court. So we have a judgment. So, and that's an important question you ask, because sometimes we feel that the workplace is, we come to work, we put our bags down, things happen in the workplace. But what about you have a function, say in the Hyatt, or you go out there, you go on a retreat.
And the party.
Right, or even you go abroad, and you know, sometimes people tend to get the personality change when they're in a different environment. And you know, they had a couple drinks, and you know, sometimes people want to do something the whole year, and they wait until they have 2 drinks, and then they blame it on the drinks, but that is what you wanted to do all the time. But you know, so that is the kind of environment that we in. So persons who feel that they could go in the car park, you know, they leave inside and they meet you outside the road, and they can do whatever because, you know, we're not in the office anymore. That is not, that you will find yourself in, you know, in trouble.
In problems, yeah.
In real problems.
Because I guess the reality is once somebody feels offended, if indeed you've crossed the line, whether it's in the workspace, whether it's outside of the workspace, once it's a work colleague, I guess, in essence, you know, the relationship, there must be this level of professionalism. I guess unless if it's a mutual scenario, I guess, you know, there are people who meet in a workplace and, well, I mean, the rest is history. They married, have children, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know.
That happens.
That's
it's consensual,
mutual,
right? And it's mutual.
But when it's somebody is really, they're having to hold back, or they're feeling pressured, as it were, or they're putting their back against a wall, there is now a hotline they can call to put forward this complaint. What will happen after you call now? You know, I've made the call. I feel a bit cornered. So I've made the call now to the 800-2223.
Right.
What's going to happen after the call?
Okay, well, we will ask you details in terms of whether, you know, and we are a culture that we don't like to write. Something happened, we don't put pen to paper and write. So we would encourage you, we wouldn't pick up the phone and call the employer right away. We'll ask you, what did you do? And then okay, did you record dates, you know, when it happened?
So timeline is important.
Very much so. And because, you know, you want to go and make an allegation against somebody, and then, okay, so when did it happen? You can't remember. Okay, so who was around when? Was there anybody around? I don't know. How is that going to stand if you don't have your facts? And even things like somebody would send you a WhatsApp message, and well, you know, now we have disappearing messages, right?
Screenshot it. Keep it.
So you have to take a screenshot of it and screenshot it, because, you know, these things are, you know, and it affects your mental health as well, because especially if you know it's taking place, you have to come to work every day.
Yeah, you don't want to go to work.
And you can't do anything because you know, getting another job might be difficult for you. You may be in a particular situation, and sometimes your boss may know you're in a particular situation, and he know how vulnerable you are. So sometimes you might be a prime candidate, or, you know, some people are very quiet. You know, some people, if you come and you touch them inappropriately on the job, you know, they may give you a slap, and, you know, they may end that, or they may talk about it loud, and, you know, you may go away sheepishly, and that'll be the end of it. But some people, they cower, they go into a court because they haven't been socialized that way, right? So you have different scenarios on the workplace.
Why is it trilingual? Is it trilingual based on the name itself? It's
No, because we know that there are persons within the society who may not speak English. You know, we have a lot of the migrant community. We know we have Haitians, we have Venezuelans, we have persons from different countries here. So we want to make once you are working in Trinidad and Tobago, you are protected, and you should be protected by the laws of Trinidad and Tobago, and we want to demonstrate that look, if you should not be working, because it's hard enough sometimes, even with locals and foreigners as well, because sometimes people work and the employer don't pay them. You know, especially if you're a migrant worker. They may think, well, okay, well, you can't do anything because, you know, you may not have your papers, but then they take you on and they make you do work. And then again, you can't get paid. These people have rent to pay. So we want to protect not nationals, non-nationals alike. Once you are a worker in Trinidad and Tobago and you work and you give an honest day's work, you should be paid and you should be respected on the workplace.
So, seeing that we're doing this awareness drive, people are now hearing about it, and I'm sure it will continue so that this could be a number top of mind if indeed anyone goes through any kind of infraction in the workplace. A question to you now is, what's the extent, the far-reaching place that the Labor Ministry, at least under the Conciliation, Advisory and Advocacy Division, how far can you go when a complaint is launched, it's lodged, and you're going to now, the person did everything, kept timeline, kept messages. The evidence is hard. What's the full stretch and length you can go now once a complaint is made?
All right. Now, there is no the legislation that should accompany the policy, the national policy right now is before the Office of the AG, and I know they're working on it.
Okay.
Right. But how do matters of sexual harassment reach industrial court? Now, there has to be a work-related issue that the worker could then go to the trade union, and the trade union can now couch that and bring that forward to the industrial court.
Okay.
Because once it reaches the industrial court, they would hear the matter and make a pronouncement, because we have had, you know, since 1995, where the first judgment on sexual harassment, that was Republic Bank matter that first started off. Then we have had, of course, the ready-mix judgment with, you know, the car park.
Yeah.
And outside that, then we have had, you know, other judgments coming forward that where workers would have gone, whether they were suspended and they challenged it, whether they were dismissed, and there's another matter with UTT and I think it was an assistant professor and a student, and he was dismissed on the job and he challenged it. He had the matter judicially reviewed and he lost. Now, what they used is they used their health and safety policy.
Okay.
Because it is also a health and safety issue.
Issue, of course.
If I come on your workplace, you didn't provide a safe working environment for me. So therefore, it could be a health and safety issue as well.
So matters concerning sexual harassment will always be decided at the industrial court. It doesn't go so much to the magistrate's court or criminal court.
Well, there could be a criminal element to it, you know, assault. If you physically touch someone, you can make a report to the police as well. So there are different avenues for justice in terms of avenues that you can go to. You can go to both. There's nothing that say that you can't go to both, because sometimes it may cross that line from sexual harassment into an assault. So you have different avenues for justice.
So, Ms. Gomez, let me ask you, because again, it's a very powerful discussion this morning. I think we are all getting a chance to get a deeper understanding. What's the current, even though I know you mentioned not as many calls coming in, but based on your investigation, being on the ground, listening, talking to colleagues, getting reports, how prevalent is sexual harassment in Trinidad and Tobago in the workplace?
Very.
More in the formal sector or informal sector?
Both.
Both.
Yeah, and you see, sometimes when it happens, people don't know what to do. Because, and that's one of the areas that we're looking at, and we want to really have training done within the sphere of, not IR, but have professionals specifically trained in how to investigate not only sexual harassment, but we have sexual exploitation on the job as well. So that's one of the areas that we're looking at, that we'll have a cadre of professionals trained in this area that you will know how to conduct an investigation, because that is something not everybody would know how to do, because sometimes when it happens in an organization, people don't know what to do. Because, okay, it may be according to where the person is in the organization, and, okay, we don't want to touch this, or what do we do? How do we go about it? Because that's a very, you know, serious question. Sometimes people hide. If it happens and an allegation come forward and, you know, the person is your friend, you may hide it from it going forward, so it may remain right there and it will die. So all of these things taking place in the workplace, and we know it's taking place because sometimes we get the, you know, maybe it may be a boss, it may be, you know, sending WhatsApp messages, it will come to the employer. Sometimes they need advice in terms of, okay, what do we do? Who do we get to investigate, you know, that sort of thing. So we want to address that need specifically and try to organize the training so that we'll have a cadre of trained professionals. It could be, you know, it could be tripartite in nature, whether we train union officials, you know, HR managers, IR managers. So we'll have people who would be trained to conduct this investigation. Training
is so important, Ms. Gomez, because the reality is, as I mentioned, culture is one of the hardest things to change, and the culture of certain work stations or work environment, you sometimes go into a culture and recognize that, okay, you know, this is how they operate, and you might be new to the space, new to the place, and you're trying now to adjust, to adapt to your new environment, and some people are very, I won't say loose, but...
Yes, that is the word. No, you can't say.
Yeah.
No, because just yesterday we were having that discussion. We did some training with CSOs, the civil society organizations. And, you know, some organizations they're very loose.
Yeah.
And you can tell from you enter, and then some organizations, even from the way the security guard interact with you, you can tell that there's structure and there's, you know, a very professional way of operating. They can tell that from the time you enter. And then some organizations, very, very loose. You know, a young lady mentioned something to me. Well, we were conducting a training, and she said, you know, there are sex rings on the job. And I said, sex rings? You know, and this is a young person. She looked relatively young, 18, 19. And yeah, that's what she said, sex rings.
And that's the culture of their workspace.
Yes.
So very unfortunate. I want, before we wrap things up, to give us that number one more time, and if there's any other space or place we can go online, or whether it be any platform to lodge a complaint.
Yes, you can call 800 CAAD. We have officers who speak French and Spanish, and they'll be able to help you. You can either send us an email at shcaad@gov.tt. If you are Spanish speaker or French, you can send us the email in your language, and somebody just give us a number where we can reach out to you, and we will call you. You can come in to us. You don't need to make an appointment. You can just come in if you have an issue, and we will attend to you. Whether it's sexual harassment or otherwise in the workplace, just come in, and somebody will attend to you.
Ms. Gomez, I want to thank you so much for your time, for this very open, honest, and frank, and much needed discussion.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course,
and
definitely.
I really like the, you know, people who come to work. There should be zero tolerance for sexual harassment in the workplace, right? Nobody should be subjected to that in the workplace.
I went through that early in my career, you know, and it's something that, I mean, it's not like it scarred me, but I used to see the person, a female, elderly states lady in the business, from back in that time, and yeah, it was uncomfortable. Not nice, not nice. And, you know, back then you just figure, well, hey, that's the work culture, and you just keep it pushing. But, you know, we know now that that's not the way, and times
especially
change.
for men, you know, men to utilize it. If you don't like it, you don't like it.
Yeah.
Nobody should subject you to that.
Sabina Gomez touching base with us, the Chief Labor Relations Officer there at the Ministry of Labor under the umbrella of the Conciliation, Advisory and Advocacy Division. We take a pause. We come back with some more of your segments as we work our way to the 7 a.m. news update. See you soon.